Everyone has a lot of dreams wound up in building a home, and they watch TV and they collect 100 Pinterest boards on what they would like to have. But they aren't so clear on how they're going to make that happen. Some even think that they can build it by themselves, and they often start looking for land and figure out that they can fill in the blanks. It can't be that complicated. Sometimes they'll call after they bought a piece of land, and this looks like a perfectly beautiful land, so what could possibly be wrong? Building a house takes a crew of at least 40 people, so doing it yourself is a major job. And I'm sure not many of you would have this in your backyard if you plan to do it yourself. Actually, they put in these trusses for the entire house in about half an hour. So it's equipment, it's builders, it's the crew that you have that are working for you. A couple of years ago, I had a client who was qualified for up to $350,000, and he was thinking new. So there were a bunch of houses in Lakeville. I showed him a few, and he was really thinking of something with more land and way grander. And I have to say, he's not alone in his expectations. Most people have higher expectations than their dollars will allow. So I showed him a few houses, just not content. So finally he called me up and he goes, guess what? I don't know, what? He found 18 acres of land. It's only $250,000, excuse me. And maybe you could even build a couple of houses on that. I said, okay, send me the address, I'll take a look. So he sent me the address, and I looked it up, and indeed it was a rolling forest, beautiful park that the city wanted to unload, 18 acres. So I read the notes, did the taxes, I had to call back, and I reported to him, yes, it is a beautiful piece of land. It is 18 acres. You are 10 miles from the nearest water hookup, which means you need to put in a well. You'll have to put in a septic system, possibly a mound system. You will have to build a road into this, present plans to the city, understand, he doesn't have any setbacks, he's got 18 acres, but there are guidelines, present plans to the city, do a soil and a perk test to find out where he could build. There was no survey and there was no topography map. Well, you can imagine, he was crushed and even a little angry because after the payout to buy the property and to do the development, he'd have basically about between $50,000 and $70,000 less to build his dream home. And that was nowhere near what he was thinking the whole process would be. He was really thinking it would be a lot simpler, and most people do. So he did not buy that. He thought I was kind of being a pain because I told him exactly what the process was, and that's not what he wanted to hear. So the other thing is, if you're hoping to build on lake frontage, there are a lot of things that you wanted to take into consideration. You want both a soil and a perk test. You want a soil test to make sure you're not building on sand, because you can't put a foundation on sand. And the perk test, you want to know where the water table is. The water table is the level, how high the water comes up. The last thing you want is to build a house and find out you have a swimming pool that you didn't account for in your basement. And that happens a lot on Lakeshore. Some do not have basements, they're built on slab, and sometimes you have to anchor it way down. So if you're looking in the rural areas, and a lot of people have this dream of having a lot of acreage, rural, so then you are far away from utility hookups, and that costs you some money. So you may have to have a septic system, you might have a mound system, which is a hill in your front yard, and there is a cost differential on that one. Local setbacks, if you're buying a city lot, understand that there will be setbacks. What does that mean? That means that the city has restrictions. You can't build on the lot line. In Minneapolis, for example, you have to build 4 feet on each side, 15 in the back, and I forgot what it is on the front. There are certain guidelines that you have. You can't just buy a property and build whatever you want on there. Builders that build urban understand it, know how to work with the city and to work with you for what you want. I did have a client who did buy a piece of property and he thought he was going to build a duplex. Well, he didn't look at the zoning and saw that it was single family. It was a small lot, so there's no way he could ask for a variance. Cities will ask for more space for a number of garages plus the building if you are building multifamily. Again, you can't make it up. You can't build just what you want. Even fences have restrictions. So the other thing to consider is topography. What is topography? It's the roll, if it's flat or if it's inclined. So for instance, if you want to walk out a basement, you're going to have a lot with at least a 15-foot variance to the back where you can actually build out. I had a client who had found a lot that was divided off from a farm. And the client was thinking of a walkout basement, which is fine. The agent selling the property had the wrong information. She put in that it was single-family zoning when it was actually agricultural. She had the wrong property ID. And the survey was 30 years old, wasn't staked, and there was no topography map. So she said, well, what can go wrong? Trust me, you know, it's a 30-year-old survey, but what could possibly move? Well, the city can change easements, they can change rules, roads can go through, so no. She actually wound up paying for an entire survey, and I helped out with the topography map. Client loved the property, but there are specifics you need to know before you can do that. So the bottom line is you don't want to really consider buying a piece of property without the assistance of a builder. Now you may think it's logical to hire either a designer or an architect, and they will work diligently to give you everything you want. You may have your dream home on a blueprint, a piece of paper. You can work for months tweaking it. But number one, you have to have a lot that fits the house, or you have to adjust the house to fit a lot. You have to have your soil, your perk, your setbacks. And really, architects and designers don't always know codes. The Minnesota code book is 85 pages, and every builder has to comply with that. Almost all homes are green built now. And you don't want surprises. If your architect gives you all kinds of beautiful aspects like enormous windows and extra trusses and all of that, that's wonderful. But he can't give you an accurate quote on what it costs to actually build that. One builder I was talking to had somebody who came in with their architect and these beautiful plans, and the architect underbid the cost about 75%. Well, the people were really upset because they had spent 6 months working with this architect to design the building of their dreams. And then they found they just couldn't afford it. No way. So they went away. The bottom line, it's good to talk to builders. There are some builders that build only big developments. There are other builders that will work with you on individual projects. So if you need some help, do give me a call.